Understanding motivation. As Joe explained, about half of all people who recover from addiction do so by a process described as natural recovery. That is, they change their behavior by being highly motivated to do so. An example of natural recovery came to light in the USA when soldiers who had become addicted to heroin in Vietnam quickly managed to stop for good when they returned home without treatment. There is evidence to show that the key factors in the success of treatment for addiction is not the type of treatment or individual therapist, but the motivation to change. Motivation matters. Motivation is the desire to achieve a goal combined with the energy to work towards that goal. Perceiving something as desirable is not enough in itself. For example, many people want to be wealthy, but it entails working hard to become the best in a certain profession, studying when friends are all out enjoying themselves, and getting up early in the morning to commute long distances. Most people don't give up things they love in order to become highly paid. We're not highly motivated towards that goal. In contrast, people in the grip of addiction are very highly motivated. They pursue their addictive behavior with considerable energy and often at a very high cost. It's not true to say people with an addiction are not motivated, it's just that their motivation is all focused on addiction, a goal that may not seem very worthwhile and in fact may well be contrary to their long-term interests. So how might motivation work in someone with an addictive behavior? For some people, experimentation with drugs and/or alcohol can coexist with a lifestyle that includes lots of other things that are important, like a home, friends, good relationships with family, a good job, etc. Eventually, the drugs and alcohol have an impact on these things. You find all your money is gone, so you can't afford other things you want. Your family members are upset with your behavior. This can bring about a change in perception. Rather than seeing drink and drugs as a great part of life, you become aware that they're in conflict with other things you value. If you recognize this fact, the need to change becomes so compelling that you're likely to become one of the 50% of people who are natural recoveries. So, going back to the lessons of natural recovery learnt from Vietnam veterans, they most likely returned home to the prospect of a family life, friendships, and work opportunities. Since they used heroin to cope with life in a war zone, the benefits of continuing to use once they'd left and returned home were much reduced. In its place were the positive incentives of family life and friends, and the much greater risk of losing it all if they continued to use. However, not everyone manages to walk away from an addictive behavior without help. Although the use of drugs and alcohol is spread relatively evenly across social class, people from more deprived backgrounds are more likely to get trapped in addiction. Some people start drug or alcohol use without a strong family life, friends, or employment prospects, so the perception of the balance between short-term escape and long-term life opportunities may look very different to them. Doctors, on the other hand, have a very high rate of beating addiction. This is probably because they have so much to lose, and it's so certain they will lose it if they don't make changes to their life. So we have seen that the perceived balance between short-term escape or pleasure and long-term life satisfaction is affected by both our background and current circumstances. Those with more to look forward to in life are just as likely to develop addictive behaviors, but their recovery may be a little bit smoother. Some problems with addiction are so severe that family ties, friends, and employment will fall away, whatever the background or circumstances. For some, recovery means discovering for the first time that family can be a place of safety and friendships can endure. For others, recovery is about reconnecting with things of value that we'd once known well. Whatever your starting point, your journey depends on motivation, strengthened by a vision of a better future. The motivation to continue addictive behavior can remain high, despite the damage to long-term goals and enjoyment of life. However, circumstances and thinking can change over time, and even after many years of active addiction, a shift in motivation can happen. Some people simply decide they no longer want to be the kind of person who puts their addictive behavior before caring for a friend, or they lose their driving license due to a drink driving offense. Perception about the cost and benefits of using or drinking can change. Some people refer to internal motivation and external motivation. Internal motivation is said to denote enjoyment or interest in a task, whereas external motivation refers to the reward or punishment, such as pay or sanction from others. However, this distinction is not as clear-cut as it seems. External events only matter to us because of our beliefs about them. For example, the threat of going to prison is an external motivation, but this will only motivate us to change if we believe our freedom is really important or we don't want to be a person with a criminal record. External events matter because of how they change the way we think about ourselves and our options for the future. Thinking about the way addiction impacts on different areas of our lives will itself influence our motivation to change and is the focus of a number of SMART tools. To recap, these are the key points of what we've learnt in this presentation about point 1 of the SMART Recovery 4-point program, Building and Maintaining Motivation. Motivation matters, and it's one of the most important factors in determining whether you will succeed in your recovery journey. Motivation is amenable to change, both from events outside us and from our own thinking and conscious intentions. Everyone has motivation. We're all motivated, but for some of us, it's motivation for things or behaviors that don't help us in the long term. It's normal to be ambivalent or unsure about change.